Good morning, everybody. I would like to convene the IDA meeting. Before we do that, I just wanted to just let everybody know that we're going to do a little zigging and zagging this morning. We have a matter coming before us at the LDC from somebody, and they have asked us if there's a possible way we can maybe expedite that because they have some other meetings they need to attend. And so what we're going to do, what I would like to do, is to go through the agenda of the IDA meeting up through the projects, and then temporarily suspend the IDA meeting and open up the LDC meeting and cover the LDC meeting agenda, and then come back to C, D, E, and F on the IDA meeting. So that's just a point of information to people. Okay, so I would like to now open up the Dutchess County IDA meeting, and I'd like to ask Jasmine to please do a roll call for attendance.
Dean.
Present.
Mark Doyle.
Here.
Kathy Bauer.
Here.
Amy Bonner.
Here.
Deidre Houston.
I'm here.
Tom McCount.
Here.
Jamie Pacone.
Here.
Okay, I want to remind everybody of our conflict of interest policy. If anybody has a conflict on a matter coming before us today, if you are aware of it at this time, could you please so state? Kathy?
I have a conflict with Jackson Crossing and Bill Parso.
Okay, anybody else?
I have a conflict with Jackson Crossing.
Okay, and that conflict is for you too?
Business relationship.
Okay, Amy?
We did the engineering for the project.
Okay, I also have a conflict with both Jackson Crossing and with the Built Parcel project. They are the ownership of those two projects are clients of Marshall and Sterling, of which I'm chairman of the board. So I will recuse myself from those two. Actually, one, because one has been withdrawn. I will turn the meeting over to Mark for those items. Anybody else? Okay, if you become aware of a conflict during the meeting, please let us know and state so. Yes.
Amy had a conflict on Jackson Crossing. I know it's been pulled.
Yes, she mentioned it.
Okay.
Jackson was pulled?
Yes, Jackson,
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry. Jackson, as late yesterday, asked that their project be withdrawn from the agenda for a future time.
Okay.
So I'm sorry I didn't mention that. Okay. Proof of meeting notice was posted, Jasmine?
Yes.
Okay. What I would like to do before we move on is just introduce a couple of people that are with us today. Melaine Camp will be talking to us about the Destination Dutchess and tourism matters. And I also wanted to ask Philip and Peter to perhaps just introduce themselves. They're sitting in on the meeting today, and they are employees of the LDC or the IDA, I guess.
I think Dutchess.
Yes.
Yeah, Think Dutchess.
Why don't you introduce yourselves, just the group?
Sure, absolutely. So Philip Scarano with Think Dutchess. My task here is Director of Business Attraction, so bringing in new business into the county. So thanks for having me sit in today.
And my name is Peter Colmar. I'm the Compliance Associate. Some may recognize me as the ethereal electronic ghost that's been up until this point.
Yes.
But I help with contract compliance for our projects.
Thank you. Yes, and it's always a challenge with technology to record and all that stuff for these meetings, so thank you. Okay, one matter we have before us is the approval of the minutes from the April 9th meeting. Has everybody had a chance to review those minutes? Is there any changes or corrections that need to be made? Okay, I don't hear any. Is somebody willing to make a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Okay, Mark, Deidre, would you be willing to?
Absolutely.
Okay. Jasmine, would you please take a vote?
Mark Doyle.
Approved.
Kathy Bauer.
Approved.
Amy Bonner.
Approved.
Deidre Houston.
Approved.
Tom McCount. Jamie Pacone.
Approved.
Approved. Okay, we have a report from the treasurer. Jane is with us remotely. Jane had some surgery recently and so is on the mend, and we welcome her to the meeting remotely.
Thank you. Looking at the balance sheet for the IDA, we have 2.7 million in cash. We have also an accounts payable of 20,000, of which 14,000 is for a pilot, and then 6,000 is due to the LDC. Looking at the P&L, we have 82,000 in revenue before the pilot payments to a budget of 309,000. So far, we're unfavorable to budget by 227,000. We have expenses of 243,000 to a budget of 747,000. So far, we're favorable to budget by 504,000. We have a net loss of 161,000 to a budgeted net loss of 438,000. So far, we're favorable by 277,000. Any questions?
Anybody have any questions for Jane? This is not a voting matter, it's just for information purposes. And Jane, I'm going to ask you, and I think I already know the answer, but as we commonly see, the actual versus the budget can be very off just because of timing issues and also because of the nature of our business where we don't always know when projects are coming in and fees come in. So
Correct.
that being said, is there anything alarming about where we're at right now?
No, basically it's just the admin fees that we would be looking for.
Okay. All right. Okay, is there any unfinished business that we need to be aware of from anybody? Okay, so what we are going to do, as I mentioned, the first item on the agenda has been withdrawn at the request of the applicant. So we are going to move to item B, and several of us have conflicts as we stated, so we're going to exit the room, and Mark Doyle is going to run that portion of the meeting.
All yours, Mark.
All right, thank you. Is just 1 minute. Peter, is Steve Tinkelman?
Excuse me, I have Mr. Tinkelman is here.
Oh, excellent. Okay, good.
All right. I'm going to recuse for this project as well.
Probably good. Okay, thank you. Hello, Mr. Tinkelman. Good morning.
Good morning.
I suspect you could just sit
Absolutely.
right over there, and that will do the trick just great.
Thank you.
Right, so once again, we pulled for consideration item A, which was the Jackson Crossing, so that is off the table for this meeting, and moving on to item B, which is the consideration and approval of the authorizing resolution for Built Parcel 4 LLC and Built Parcel 7, authorizing an assignment of a portion of the land and a portion of the existing pilot benefits previously granted for Built Parcel 4 to Built Parcel 7. This is all in the town of Poughkeepsie. So these are not new benefits, they are pre-existing. We're changing the company to which they are attributed, but the principles remain the same. So I don't know, Don, is there anything else you'd like to?
That's a simple, and what's happening is because this is an older project predating the project agreement requirements, so there are a lot of documents that go with it, so that take the portion, only the portion of the benefits that are already approved, a portion of those are being allocated to this project, and under the project agreements we now have, it would be treated as a related party, wouldn't even have to come back. But back at that time when we did these, we didn't have that. So if it's a related party, and it's the same person who is the Mr. Tinkelman, who is the sole member of the LLC that's involved. So it's really just changing it for their own purposes and that's that simple, okay?
What I'm thinking is that this is a simple case, but this might be a good opportunity, and sort of maybe springing this on you, to lay out for us in basic terms the overall project and the benefits that the town of Poughkeepsie have seen from from it over the last, whatever it is. How many years have you been going? 7, 8 years on this particular?
Maybe 10.
Maybe 10.
Yeah, so we started out, we moved our office to 25 Van Wagner, and it was a building that had not been used for any, the space that we moved into hadn't been, it was built in the 50s and had never been used. The neighborhood was really derelict, and we moved there because it was a great space for our office, and we had no plans to do anything. And one thing, it was kind of an organic development. It came with a couple of buildings that were also derelict, single-family homes, that we ended up putting apartments in. And they rented, and people wanted to live there, and you're not sure why, because the neighborhood really hadn't been established at the time. But we subsequently have turned about 13 buildings that we've touched, and there's about 50,000 square feet of commercial space. I'd say a majority of them are not-for-profits that we have been supporting through being able to, very, very driven rent agreements so that they could survive and do well there, from child abuse, the Community Foundation, Project More, which deals with women coming out of prisons and stuff like that. So we're kind of proud of being able to be supportive that way. We also have 7 women-owned businesses in the neighborhood. So that's been kind of cool. We just finished a building that was a 5-story mixed-use building that, again, this whole neighborhood couldn't have happened without the benefits here. And I'm, without getting on a high horse on this, I'm really glad to sit down and show, the details of these pro formas, because you can really see how, how much positive stuff has come from this project and other projects. And we're paying, I'm going to make up a number, but we could be paying $250,000 in taxes in the neighborhood that there was really very minimal taxes coming from these buildings. And again, also glad to give a tour of, and the other part of it is that we have different rent rates there. So, we have some that are below market. We have some that are, at the top end of the market. And we have also houses that we've fixed up that are just, thoughtfully done, but conservatively done. So it's really a nice mixed use neighborhood. The other thing that, because you put me on the spot, so I'm not prepared here. But the other part of it is that, we're building a neighborhood, and so part of that includes public improvements. So we built a new, kind of a town square, which is a public space, which is landscaped and, will be furnished. And we're actually working on a sculpture project there. Last week, we were in front of the town board for, doing some other things that we're still considering. The economy's difficult, but we want to do a few more projects. But part of it is that we built a swimming pool, indoor swimming pool, in the last building that we did. Now we're being able to offer, we have some off time on Fridays, and we're looking at some other days where we're going to be having programs for seniors with the town of Poughkeepsie, and it's working with their rec department, and because there is no pool in the town of Poughkeepsie. So there's public benefit that comes from all this stuff, and if you're creative and thoughtful, you want all this energy. So, I have to really say that the fundamental driver was, basic economics to get financed, and the ADA, really what this board did made it possible. And, again, I don't understand some of the conflicts, and I've talked to several of you, and you probably heard me say this, but I really think there should be more pilots than less pilots, because everything is so hard to do right now. And the more housing you can build, the more affordable things become, the more opportunities that are out there, and it's pretty complex. But so anyway, this application in front of you today is every site that we have in this neighborhood is owned by its own separate LLC, and that's the plan here, is to continue moving that along. We may have a project that we'll come back to you with on this site, but we're not asking for anything here other than to put it into a different ownership model, which again, I'm the sole member right now, so.
Very good. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Would anybody like to make a motion
Go ahead.
No, I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
in favor of
Oh,
The authorizing resolution for the assignment of the portion of the land and portion of the existing pilot benefits previously granted for built parcel 4 to built parcel 7.
Thank you, Jen.
second.
Would you take the roll call?
Yes.
Deidre Houston.
Approve.
Tom McCount.
Approve.
James McComb.
Approve.
Mark Doyle.
Approve.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Want me to come in?
Yeah.
Thank you. And soon? Cool. Great.
Thank you very much. I'm just gonna add too much.
Okay. Did you steal my stuff?
No, I pushed it all in.
Did you borrow my stuff? That was
No,
very
it's
fair of me to use the word steal.
Yeah.
Okay, as I mentioned earlier, if it is okay with everybody, I would like to ask for a motion to suspend the IDA meeting. Would somebody be willing to do that? Thank you. Tom, would somebody be willing to second?
Second.
Okay. Jasmine, will you please take a vote to suspend the IDA meeting temporarily?
Mark Doyle.
Approved.
Kathy Bauer.
Approved.
Amy Bonadiri.
Approved.
Deidre Houston.
Approved.
Tom McCount.
Approved.
James McComb.
Approved.
Jim Dean.
Approved. So just for the public to know, we are going to suspend the meeting and hope to reopen it within short order after the LDC meeting agenda is completed. And now I would like to ask for a motion to reopen the suspended Dutchess County IDA meeting.
Motion.
Temporarily suspended.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Jamie. Would someone willing to second? Okay, Mark, thank you. Okay, Jasmine, please take a vote.
Doyle.
Approved.
Kathy Bauer.
Approved.
Amy Bonadiri.
Approved.
Deidre Houston. Tom McCount. James McComb.
Approved.
Jim Dean.
Approved. Okay, so we are now back in the IDA meeting, and I would like to suggest that we delay the discussion of C and D until after the presentations E and F, so that Elaine can do that and be on her way. So, welcome, Elaine.
Hey, good to see you all again. Excited to share our new name and our new branding. On April 3rd, we had a Tourism Trends Conference and a 10th anniversary celebration as an independent 501c6 and the work we've done since then. So that brochure, that's this one here, this kind of gives highlights of those past 10 years. Where we've been, where we're going, the innovations we've made, the successes that we've had. And then we have new posters, so if you need some decorations for your office, please take one. And then below that are the travel guides that we released last week at our National Travel and Tourism Week. Annual brochure that we did at the waterfront at the Mid-Hudson Discovery Museum. So that was a great day. Excited to share the new Destination Dutchess naming. It's a DBA, we're still Dutchess Tourism Inc. But this is a brand and logo design that will help us move forward in the future. You know, when the old one was designed, we weren't doing social media and digital media the way that we are now, and it just wasn't working anymore in the way that we needed to for us. So we made that leap to move forward. Lots of things to look at and enjoy there, but if you want to look in your packets at the quarterly report, we'll talk about the first quarter here. I've given up on the PowerPoints because they never work. So we just stick with the paper, and sometimes it's the best way to go. I'm going to go through and pick out a couple things I just want to highlight on page 1 there in the middle. We did do a sales mission in partnership with Brand USA and Visit USA to Australia and New Zealand earlier this year, meeting with over 1,000 travel agents, training them on what Dutchess County is, why people come, what they want to see and do. And so one of the results of that was our website traffic went up significantly. Overall 9.4%, but 41% of that was from international. So people then going to get more information to help people plan trips to Dutchess County. You flip the page to page 2. One of the things I want to say thank you for the extension that we had from our 2024 budget into 2025, because it allowed us to continue to promote Hotel Week, which we did for the first time since before the pandemic. That was a 2-week, $99 a night. We had 15 participants in it. One of the things that's really interesting to see when you look at the Instagram results and the growth in Facebook, we don't normally get to do paid campaigns in Q1. And so when you have the money, you see the growth that we can have and the reach we can have and getting more eyeballs on our things. So that's a really interesting indicator. We also continue to promote our Wheel the World program with our accessible attractions here in Dutchess County, and that was very successful as well. This audience is they seek out this information because they want to travel. And if you've ever traveled with somebody who has a disability and realize how many obstacles there can be, finding accurate information on what people can expect is critical for their trips and satisfaction. So there's a lot of engagement on these posts. Going to page 3. Looking at the website, best Q1 ever. We keep saying that. I don't know how it keeps happening, but my team is really great. And so I give all the credit to them. You see the international traffic growing, UK, Ireland, Germany, Japan continue to grow. You look at the spotlights, 67% year over year increase in page views for those spotlights, those top 10s, those itineraries from all that advertising we were able to do to drive people to our website. So that was very successful. I think over 1,000 views on more than 5 spotlights there. I think the most interesting thing is our Fly Direct to Stewart campaign that we did in 2022 actually was number 5 on our list. So people are looking for some winter getaways and found their way to Dutchess County. Down with the website, you can see Rev 250 continues to grow as we move to 2026 for the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. So we keep building that up with different programming, and we have a dedicated landing page on the website now to house all that information for people. I just recorded 3 radio spots yesterday to help promote some of those events and activities. So you get to hear a lot of Malene on the radio, and I'm going to apologize now. On page 4, having some great interviews, coverage with our PR efforts, all the outreach that's done. Christina and my team attended Trav Media's IMM that took place the day before the Travel and Adventure Show at the Javits Center in New York City. So a great opportunity to reach a lot of folks there. On page 5, we talked about Hotel Week. One of the things I want to point out is in the middle of that page, that bold section. Because of those promotions that we did, the average length of stay increased 8% year over year. And the awareness of Dutchess as a winter destination even boosted those short-term vacation rentals actually significantly, 133% year over year, and the length of stay increased too. So people were staying longer in those short-term rentals that we have. We have a number of marketing partnerships that help us make our dollar go a lot further. If you flip to page 6, you see some of those international efforts. Like I said, we did that trip with Brand USA to New Zealand and Australia, but we also have a partnership. We have an EDA grant for a collective called Beyond the Big Apple. And that's us, it's Sullivan Catskills, and it's the central New York region. So one of their folks went and represented all of us at the Holiday World Show in Ireland, and you saw that web traffic from there boosted because we were there and that presence and people looking for us. If you want to skip down to the bottom of that page, you saw that we are at the American Bus Association. It's something we do every winter where we get to meet with bus groups, and hopefully they plan trips here. They plan in January for like 2026, 27. So this year's trips are already booked. This is for future trips primarily. Sometimes we still get one in the same year, but in a 24-hour period in Dutchess County, you can expect a spending of about $21,000, $22,000 per 24 hours that one of those bus groups is here in the county. So it's a really good group of folks to attract here because they spend a lot of money when they come, and we appreciate that. On page 7, we did a resident sentiment study at the end of December. Thank you to everyone who filled that out. 8 in 10 residents think tourism is good for their local area. They care about the success of the county's tourism industry and believe the positive benefits outweigh any negative impacts. 87% said they look forward to showing off our county to visiting friends and relatives, and 93% are proud to call Dutchess County home. So really good result there. It's really interesting that when you look at the demographics of the people who completed the survey, we know that new transplants love the area. That's why they moved here. But most of the respondents are people who've lived here for 15 years to their whole lives. So it's long-term residents having those same positive experiences and reports. We continue to do our Trail Finder experience passes, all 8 of them. In Q1, 205 passes were downloaded from 13 states, Canada, and France. And then once they go and they find one, they find all the other ones, and so then they'll go explore further in our county. On page 8, agritourism in Q1 is all about maple syrup. And so we did a lot with that. It's a rough job that we have here. Events posted to the calendar still remains the most popular page on our website. A lot of them promoted agritourism experiences, not only maple syrup, but also animal experiences that you can have throughout the county. Farmers Market landing page is updated. The Farm Finder Pass promotes 15 different farms. We open it to anyone that wants to participate. Those are the people who said yes. If you skip to page 9, you get the report from the Hudson Valley Film Commission. So far this year, $109 million in direct spending in Dutchess County, 1,300 room nights, 7 locations, 10 production days. The governor's budget just did that passed included extending film tax credits to 2036, which is great for investment. Credits increased by $100 million earmarked for independent films, 10% incentive for musical scores with a minimum of 5 musicians, and created here in New York State. And then also the most important thing is the accelerated payments of credits. It used to be able to take up to 3+ years. Now, if you apply this year, you should get your money this year. Production is completed then. So a lot of big productions coming. A film called Rain, Rain, The Beauty, Steven Spielberg coming, and Non-View with Emily Blunt and Coleman Domingo. Coleman Domingo likes filming here. If you've seen Netflix and the 4 Seasons, he was also here for Sing Sing. So great to have repeat customers who have learned that they love filming in Dutchess County and throughout the Hudson Valley. 55 tourism-related jobs were also created in Q1 for the film industry. Next page gives some highlights from Arts Mid-Hudson. They've been working on the Partners in the Arts grants for programmatic support and capacity building. 54 applications came in, and then the dollar amounts, they keep going higher. So we keep working on making sure that we're investing in projects that are going to bring visitors and spending, as well as be great for locals. The Inn at Belfield has a great program with Arts Mid-Hudson and their artists where they called Art at the Belfield. So at every landing by the elevator is local art. And those artists have the opportunity to sell their art and get a 75% commission. And they are. Those paintings and things are moving. So it's really exciting to have the opportunity and to have a hotel that wants to help showcase local art. Arts and Education continues to grow with their arts and action groups. They get to meet and bounce ideas off each other and find collaborations, way to work together. They do professional development workshops, critique groups that help increase the effectiveness of programs and projects. And then also the folk arts programming. New event this year is the Hudson Valley Puppetry Festival. So new innovations happening. They have the gallery right now. The pop-up shop, handmade pop-up shop, is at Arts Mid-Hudson through Mother's Day, through Father's Day. Great place to shop for local handmade items. And then the Bardavon continues to have a strong economic impact on our region. They have a new director there, has a lot of new ideas and ways to increase programming and events at the theater. So good things happening all around. I'm happy to take any questions that you have.
Anybody have any questions?
So the Rev 250 grants at the county are going to be announced, I believe, this week.
Yes.
Will you be working directly with the Historical Society? So in our county budget, we put $125,000 for a grant money towards Rev 250 from historical societies to apply for. And then we put 50,000, I believe, in tourism's budget to work directly with the historical societies in order to help them get the information out. Do you guys have a plan to
So
do that?
we're doing some of our, so the radio,
Yeah.
to market that's happening, we're doing signs, we're doing the event again that we hosted last year with the FDR Library for RevCon with the reenactors and the local history fair inside with the Historical Society. So that's happening again last year. Visitation to the library increased 35% over the same Saturday the year before. So our event brought a lot of new people to them and vice versa. So that was really successful doing that again. That's June 14th on Flag Day, also Path Through History in New York State, which I love New York. And then at the end of June, we're doing an event at Fishkill Farms called the Revolutionary Cider Celebration. So we're bringing in culinary historians, cider historians. We're doing an orchard tour and talk about how they make their cider today, their treasury cider. So Jonathan Kruk is a Revolutionary War storyteller for families and friends. So that's happening. So doing those kind of events as well. And then additional marketing and promotion will happen once the historical societies complete their project.
Right.
So probably once they're done, probably in the fall, by the time they get their money and implement everything that they're planning, we have other promotions planned to highlight what they're doing.
Yeah, because they probably don't have the bandwidth to get their information out the same way.
Part of their applications had to tell us how they were going to promote it, and we had to approve those not the local things, but anything that would bring in visitors. So to advise, and we had a meeting with everybody to help them understand ways to promote themselves. We had lunch and learns that they were invited to do press releases and PR and social media and things like that. Not as many attended as I would have hoped, but we'll be there to support those projects as well. And that's what the landing page will house, all of that information that the people can go find out what's happening with regard to our history.
Great.
Should mention that, just for the record, Fishkill Farms is managed by our board member, Mark.
Yes.
Obviously, I don't bring that up as a conflict because this is just for information purposes, but Fishkill Farms is a very well-known tourist destination and resident destination in our county.
And it's cherry season, and George Washington, here's, we promise you won't cut down any of your trees. I might make a joke.
This is a really picky minor question.
Yes, sir.
And it's a point of education for me. Is Bannerman Castle within Dutchess County?
It is.
I would not have known that.
It is. We can double check. There's a little bit of artistic license happening.
Understood, but.
But yes, it doesn't actually face that direction, but that's the pretty side. It is.
I did not think of it as being a Dutchess County attraction. So
Sure as
that's-
heck is. Man.
Yeah.
We're claiming that.
Yes, well, that's good.
Yeah.
Okay,
Their trust office has been in Beacon for years.
Yeah, and that's where you can also get the vote from.
yes.
Good topics.
Okay. All right, Don.
It's unrelated. However, I did promise, I sent everyone, this is on built parcel. I know it doesn't affect you. It's not about a vote.
Okay,
There was a public hearing yesterday morning. At the end of the public hearing, I mentioned the fact that there was one letter of objection and that I was expecting another one because usually her husband provides one as well. And I then learned afterwards that in fact, that letter had already been sent to the board. And all I said was I would make sure that the board was aware of it.
okay.
So I was contacted and asked to make sure that I told you that the record was clear. And so I neglected to mention that when that matter was before you, but you had already received notice of it. And I've since received an email now saying, well, you didn't mention it. So you had already received it, so it is of no consequence at all, except to satisfy somebody's ego, and so it's now been resolved.
So I just think it's appropriate. Is there any member that would like to, based on this information, reopen consideration of that matter?
No.
They've already had the information.
Understood, but just
I received a letter yesterday and was well informed when I made my vote.
anybody else?
Likewise.
Okay, so unless there is a motion that would require a second, we will not reopen the matter? Okay, so thank you for that. Melaine, thank you. Any questions for Melaine about her organization's activities? Thank you so much. We appreciate the efforts. Oh, happily. Okay. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the Think Dutchess Business Development Program Outcomes Report. And, this is in our packets. And it's, a summary of a lot of different goals and measurements that we have as an organization. And I just wanted to ask if there's any part of that this report that anybody would like to have a discussion about. And if not, what I'm going to do is move back to the other two items on our agenda. But again, if anybody has a question now, we'd be happy to talk about it. And also at a future meeting, if someone has not had a chance to read this through and has questions about it, after reading it. Okay, so again, I welcome discussion at a future meeting. Okay, now I want to take us back to items C and D and have a general discussion. Just to bring everybody up to date, we have been discussing financial disclosure forms, actually for a couple of years now. And there's been various discussions and negotiations. Our last discussion was that we were hoping that the legislature would reconsider the form that we had been asked to file, which was vastly more detailed and required much more information than the prior form. And I learned last week that the legislature, as opposed to what we had said, is that the other boards similar in construction to ours, the wastewater authority and the resource recovery boards, did not have the same requirements that we had. And so the legislature did consider that information, but rather than rescind it for us, they added those two boards to the requirement. So based on that, I would say that, believe it or not, the disclosure form is due on the 15th. And if we don't complete it by the 15th, we will receive a letter that says we have not completed it, and we will need to have it done by the 30th. So based on that, the first thing I'm going to do is ask people if they have any questions for our council about the form and its requirements. And then if people, since this is a very short order, if anybody would be willing to inform us about their intention as to continue after the 30th or not, would be important, because obviously we need to let the legislator know whether we will have a quorum in this board and if they need to appoint other members. So first course of business is, does anybody have any questions about the questions on the form, a lack of understanding or clarity that they need?
Can I just make one clarification?
Yes.
The legislature voted on this in 2024 for 2025. So our negotiations that we were having were for 2026. It was always intended that this board fill this out for 2025. The wastewater and the RRA are added in for 2026, not for 2025, just to make sure everyone's.
Okay. So they still will not have to comply with the requirements we are being asked to comply with this year. Questions about the form itself?
I guess overall is the intention of the legislature to target boards and make it more difficult to stand as a volunteer?
I do not believe that is the intention of the legislature. Obviously, I cannot speak for the legislature. I'm just one member of a 25-member board. So I won't speak on behalf of them, but I do not believe the intent is to make it more difficult for volunteers to serve on boards. I believe the intent is that any board that has taxing authority, taxing jurisdiction, that they fill out the form. prior to the new form, which I believe was introduced in 2019, may have been 2020, the wastewater and the RRA already did fill out the financial disclosure form. It was a different form, but they did fill it out.
Yes, as did we.
Right. So when the new form came in, that's when all this happened, that people were exempt. And we've just decided to go back. The legislature decided to go back to everyone who had filled it out previously for the same reasons they filled it out. The form is more in depth, but it's back to the way it was. So no, there's no targeting of specific boards. Dutchess Community College fills it out. There's other boards that do fill this out
I
as
just
well.
want to be clear about the prior form was not the same as this form.
Totally agree.
Okay.
Yes.
Any other questions?
So I'm sorry,
Yes.
once again. So you said that the community college board has this exact identical form?
Correct.
Right. And there are others across the board here.
Right. Yes. And Dutchess Community College has already been filling it out.
Okay.
Again, because, 1/3 of their budget comes from the county.
This is something that came down from the state of New York, and I think I have to fill this out as well. I do not have the investments, and I do not have family living in my household where I have to worry about conflicts, but many people do, particularly people who are in the business world who understand, individuals particularly who understand the fiduciary responsibility of an organization, who deal with finances, who deal with developments, who understand these and can interpret these applications appropriately. They're likely to have investments. They're likely to have business relationships. So it makes it very difficult, I think, for those individuals to fill these documents out. I think there's also a concern over privacy. I mean, you have to fill out a conflict of interest form, and it is expected that you are going to conduct yourselves appropriately and recuse yourselves and not act as criminals. But nevertheless, they are asking for this information, and I think if I were in a position, as some people are, that have means or agreements, resources, relationships, I would be concerned about how much information is revealed to the public about those relationships and about the value of them, because I do think some of it is irrelevant, but it is something, again, that came down from the state. And I just want to read something that our county attorney had sent, which I believe you've all seen, but I just want to make it clear. This is from Chris Cullen, who oversees the ethics committee. There is no express authority to withhold information from a financial disclosure statement based on a letter from an employer or other jurisdiction, which is a question that came up. Like if my employer or my partner or whatever did not want this information revealed. However, a person required to file a financial disclosure statement must only make a good faith effort to complete the form rather than guarantee 100% completeness and accuracy. The form is not sworn to under penalty of perjury. So I think the expectation is that everyone is going to complete the form to the best of their ability, and where they may have some concerns, I'm not a counsel, and I'm not the arbiter of this at the ethics board, but if you have particular issues with questions, is to put them in that space and allow that process to proceed. If someone wants to file a complaint or requires more information, then it does go to the county attorney's office and the ethics committee or board, whatever it's called, and they will evaluate that. But I think this is a very broad financial disclosure statement, and it is something that unfortunately we all have to fill out. So I'd recommend if you're going to complete it, to do it to the best of your ability, and understand. And I'll defer to Don too on Chris Cullen's statement to me. But if you have particular issues, I would put them in the document itself too.
Any other questions? Okay, I would like to make a statement. Unfortunately, as a board member and as the chairman of this committee, I did not seek this position. I am not compensated. I do not receive any benefits. Other members of the legislature and Ron receive compensation, pension options, healthcare benefit options in exchange for their service. I was asked to serve. I did not seek this. I do not receive any financial benefits from this service. I willingly have given my personal time. My only benefit has been what I thought was satisfaction in providing volunteer service to my community. Based on this requirement that me and my family members reveal the specifics of our financial success or failure, our assets and our liabilities, is beyond fairness in exchange for the benefit that I receive. So, based on that, I will be issuing a letter of resignation this afternoon, which will be effective either at the end of this month or at a sooner date if required by my decision not to provide this information. And I regret that. I've enjoyed my service, but that is my decision. If anybody else is willing at this time, just from a matter, I'm only asking from a matter of expediency for the county to understand that they need to replace board members in very short order based on, this matter. If anybody else has made a decision to stay or not stay and wishes to disclose it, this meeting is fine. But if not, you will need to either way provide either the form completed or a letter of resignation. And I want to be clear. I respect and appreciate Ron's information about this form not being a warranty statement. But I think the intent of the legislature is clear. They want this information. So for me to attempt to avoid it by not completing it or to be deceiving in hopes of some appeal process or something, the intent is clear, and I respect the intent, but I have a choice not to, and so I've made that decision. Does anybody else wish to comment at this time?
I'll make a comment. As everyone knows, my term came up for June 1st. It was very tough to decision whether or not to renew, especially since I grew up listening to my father, a founding board member of the Dutchess County IDA, talk about all the great projects that were done. So I've known about the IDA, learned more and understood more as I got older. And then Mike Tonkovich, also a founding member of the IDA, sent me a letter when I first was appointed, congratulating me on the appointment and reminding me what we do here, which is create jobs. That is the primary mission. So when my term came up for renewal and this disclosure statement came out, I found it extremely invasive of privacy. I spoke with my husband about it, even brought it up to my father, who was outraged. So between stuff at home happening, my parents aging, more responsibilities there, this notice that we were required to fill out, and some changes at the job, I decided that my time was up. And it's with regret that I am leaving. But again, I won't just say that I don't know or don't understand the question to evade filling out the form. I don't feel that's right. But for somebody that is a volunteer who does not receive any compensation at all from the taxpayers, filling this position, I couldn't renew my term.
Okay, anybody else?
Well, I just want to make one other statement. I don't have the same history with Kathy, but I have it with Tim, and it goes back more than 2 decades. And so what I don't want you to have is not a feeling that this community is not grateful. As someone who has been involved in economic development, from my earliest memory, and also when we started this organization in the EDAC, your input has been incredibly valuable. Your service on this board has been incredibly valuable. and also as an individual in our community who supports many charitable organizations and has led a top employer based in the city of Poughkeepsie. We're incredibly grateful for your service. And so in defense of the legislature, this did come down in 2019 from the state. It became indefensible to object, and I think that's part of the problem, and that is why it's been spread across to the other agencies. Unfortunately, we live in a time where there's the public has an incredible distrust of anybody, and there are people who will foil anything and everything, and to no end. And I think if I have not been that target yet, but there are people who are targeted, and they have little more to do than to disrupt and to displace, good people who provide a tremendous service. So I don't want the legislature to take the full burden of this, and I don't want you to think there isn't an incredible gratitude for what you've done.
No question.
And there are other opportunities on the EDAC to continue to provide that incredible value that you have. You don't have to do a form there.
And I totally respect the legislature's need to do this, and to the extent that lobbying can be done at whatever level needs to be done to make an understanding that volunteers are different than paid people. There is policies in place that address fiduciary responsibility, conflict of interest, felonious behavior, and the decision that not only do you need to know what assets I have, which is almost acceptable and understanding, that you know who I have interest in as a conflict, but to understand the specific range of dollars connected with those, to me, that doesn't make sense. Whether you have one share or a million shares, you have a conflict.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the part of it which I find onerous and unnecessary. But that being said, I've enjoyed my service, and I truly regret that I can't continue, but it's just a decision I made.
Well, I'd like to say, the emotion from you both is absolutely palpable, which is absolutely indicative of, how much you have given and also prepared to continue giving in some way. You wouldn't feel this way if it wasn't your intention to continue giving. So I don't know how one goes about expressing this to the larger decision makers further up in Albany or whatever, or even the general public. But I think it needs to be said that people are taking this incredibly seriously and with their deep emotions. So, with that, I don't think there's much more from myself.
And I just want to point out that I think there's many people who are similar to Kathy and I in the population who, by this action, you are creating an exclusionary basis for them to participate in volunteer service to their community, which is a shame.
Tim, one other point, and I've been in government my whole life, and I've seen this over the years, and the state legislature in particular, the controller at times, the attorney general, the governors have targeted IDAs over time. It is why we had to create the LDC. I've always tried to say we should be ahead of their concerns so that it's not legislated. But the reality is that there are a group of people and individuals and officials that would be happy if this whole operation was shut down.
But it's not just IDAs that are being the wastewater, the recovery, any other volunteer.
Indeed.
But
there is no one. The individuals who facilitate these, and the reason why these were created, they will sit back and they would enjoy this disruption as well as if this organization went away completely. Unfortunately.
Okay. Any other comments at this time? Okay, so one of the matters we have before us is we need to have a replacement for Kathy Bauer as our secretary and treasurer. And what I wanted to ask is if there's anybody present in this room who at this time would be willing to volunteer to serve in that capacity. If somebody needs a little bit more information about the position, I'm sure Kathy would be willing to elaborate on it, and Jane as well. But is there anybody, any board member currently present that would be willing to take on the role of secretary treasurer of this committee at this time?
Shouldn't that be two positions?
It could be. I think it's probably been felt that I'm sorry.
No, I was just curious why it's not two separate people doing two separate secretary and financial or treasury.
I would probably say we could do that for sure. Yes. So would anybody be willing to serve solely as the secretary or treasurer? And again, if there is not a person at this time, I would suggest that happens is at a newly reconstituted meeting where there's also a new chairperson. That matter could be taken up again because we will have obviously the potential we have one new member already in the works to replace Kathy and then somebody to replace me as well. All right, one more.
Plus the results of the analysis of our.
Yeah.
Yes, that should not change the constitution of the LDC or IDA board. Those entities will need to continue. What could change is the day-to-day management structure of, preparing us for these meetings and reviewing applications.
I guess,
These bodies are tools that will continue. You will not notice the difference on the outside, except for the fact that I think we'll be bringing more information to you, so you're more aware of the economic activities that are going on at a deeper level.
Right, but the leadership is what I was more talking, like Sarah Lee not being here, or if she's going to be replaced.
The replacement, it will likely be, has to be an executive director and a CEO. So again, I think the difference that the board members will notice is that there will be more information brought in from the outside about what's happening in the economic development world, so that you make these decisions in the context of that, as opposed to simply the applications. So it'll be more inclusive.
Okay.
You won't have more work to do. You'll know more about what's going on.
I guess while Kathy's still here, would you give us some historical knowledge so that either when we have new board members, we can tell them what the roles are? I mean, as secretary and treasurer, if you're able to parse them out?
And perhaps you could just give them an idea of the time that it requires.
So monthly, Jane and I review the general ledgers. She sends me all the credits and debits and the bank statements, and I make sure the reconciliation and to the GLs and the bank statements all match. That I do on a monthly basis. The budget is in the fall. Jane, when Sarah used to put the budget together, the committee would review it, and then we would present it to the board at the following month's meeting, and then basically do the same thing with the audit. We had a committee meeting in around February, March timeframe, and reviewed the audit, and then we presented that to the board. So really, it's mostly the monthly items. It doesn't take that long, like an hour or so to go through that. It's now, but for secretary, I would sign any resolutions that were approved at the board meetings, and minutes, yeah.
I agree, it should be two different roles.
Well, which is fine.
For secretary, that's it? For secretary, you just have to sign off on?
Review and sign.
Reviewing and sign, yeah. And then once in a while, the board meetings, questions come up about the budget or something like that, that I would answer.
Treasurer, not for.
The treasurer, yeah.
So secretary. time commitment wise,
It's not
too
a
much of an add-on.
It is not, the secretary is not that much at all.
Yeah, the staff does the day-to-day work of it.
It is expected, if approved, a person who is going to replace Kathy comes from working from a financial institution and then overseeing an organization where financial oversight is important. So that is, I believe, possibly on the June agenda. So that position will be.
And I would say it does not have to be someone from a financial institution, but it should be somebody that has a working knowledge of financial documents.
Right, they would have to know. I mean, Jane and I do talk about sometimes the bank accounts, rates that the bank is giving, and advocate for something better when necessary.
Yeah, I have to say, I came out of the county attorney's office back in 1976. It goes way back. And Phil Amodio was the
Finance Commissioner.
Commissioner of Finance, and he was also one of the founding members of the IDA board. And Phil treated every penny on the county side and on the IDA side as though it was coming out of his pocket, and he would make sure that he got all of the benefit that the county could get out of that, or the IDA could get out of that. And then to have Kathy right hot on the heels of that to serve, it's just been wonderful. So having somebody else try to fill that position is going to be very, very difficult.
Thanks for making it even sound harder.
It's those of you that don't know, Phil Amodio is my father. Yes.
I see them at gym all the time.
So really, that is something you need to take into account, because they do have the background, the accounting background that is very helpful. It may not be necessary, but it sure is helpful with what you're doing. But anyway, and I do appreciate all Kathy's and your.
Yes.
So can I ask a question about the bylaws? The IDA is able to add members as they wish. I don't believe they are voting members, but for the purposes of serving in leadership positions like a secretary or treasurer or is that something that can be done temporarily from the outside, or does it have to be an appointed member?
Well, if you're trying, I haven't looked at the bylaws with that in mind, but I do believe that they've always been members of the board. If you're trying to change any bylaws, if you're talking about the LDC, the bylaws can only be changed by the legislature itself. But the IDA bylaws can be amended. But again, whether or not that's, you have a chief financial officer. The idea of having a secretary treasurer is to have somebody who's on the board and watching over everything that's going on and participating in the vote and making the presentations.
One thing, with both of us leaving the bank accounts, the signatures, we're going to have to get new signers put into place by the end of the month.
And also,
you actually, and just to be clear on this, because of the fact that you filed your resignation on the 28th, I believe, and you stated it would be the end of the month.
June 1st, yeah.
June 1st, but it's really, by statute, it only lasts for 30 days, so it's the 28th.
Okay.
Not the 3rd.
okay, and so, but just for purposes of, the legislature, the new members that they are considering, if one of the qualifications you may seek is somebody, if there's not somebody currently on the board that has the financial background desired, then that might be the type of person you look to appoint.
And make sure that they are aware of this.
That has been made part of the packet.
Okay.
Now, I saw communication. Okay. Is there anything else that we need to talk about? Oh, and after the secretary treasurer, appointment of additional member to the audit committee and finance committee, I would suggest that oftentimes that person is the treasurer. So I would think it would make sense to delay that decision until you decided who would be the treasurer. Okay, anything else? Kathy?
So as of the end of the month, let's just call it the end of the month, there's going to be nobody here that can sign anything for the bank.
Okay.
So I really think that needs to be brought up.
Yes.
Would we need to start with an interim anyway, Chairman? I mean, would that be the first step?
I would suggest that's probably a good idea.
You want to make a motion?
Do we have anyone that's?
I mean, there's obviously some senior members of the
So,
LDC here,
I
right?
will provide some input on that. Mark Doyle has served as the second in command, so to speak. I don't know Mark's intentions about completing the form and continuing on, but Mark, if you were nominated for such a position as interim, would you be willing to consider that?
I would, but I guess we can just roll together and we can have a conversation just fine.
Yeah.
So, I know that it's an interesting question.
You don't have to answer.
I haven't.
Okay,
thought
would you
it
like to
through.
defer a discussion about that?
Well, yes and no. But let's open it up a little bit. I think that what I'd like to say is, I've really appreciated Jamie's stand on and view on both in-depth asking of questions, but also taking leadership, on the financial side of things as well. So, I feel like there's really good partnership and leadership there, and so it would not be any skin off my nose if we stayed.
I'm not
If I stayed the same and you're not interested, so there you go.
Would you be interested in a temporary?
I would be interested in treasurer if I'm willing to sign off on the financial disclosure.
Yes.
Because my background is finance and I'm a treasurer on several other boards.
Yes.
So I have no problem with that, but I
Okay.
still have to review it. I mean, I printed it, I looked at it, I didn't fill it out yet.
Yeah. So again, this is the discussion about an interim position. It's not, I think that that's a wise suggestion. So,
Yeah, I mean, I think Mark would have my vote for an intern.
So I would accept.
I agree.
okay. So if that's being the case, I would ask someone to make a motion. And Don, I guess what I would ask is, should that be for a time period or just until such time as?
Such time as, you don't have to put a termination date on it. You can then decide again as a group.
Okay.
Will that be effective as of your resignation date or as of today? I'm just
I think it might be better to be effective today so that we can get signatures done. Is that safe to say?
Well, at the very least, you want it effective as of the resignation.
Okay.
That's what
Okay, so as of the date of my resignation.
Just wanted to make sure we had.
That's a great point.
It's going to be a little bit of a learning curve there.
Sure.
And so we can do that. The important part is that for anything that Kathy has to sign, it's that she can't do it after the 28th.
Right, right.
That's why I wanted to make that clear. That was just.
Yes, and I want to be clear. I am not looking to leave this organization in the lurch. If it is within compliance and it allows the powers that be to work through things, I will serve, until such time as I'm no longer able and you have replacements. What I was told is the form has to be in place by the end of this month. That's why I chose that date. If it's determined that, another 2 weeks or 30 days is helpful, I'm willing to do that. But
It is due tomorrow. And then what happens, from what I understand, finance puts out another notice to everyone in the county who has not submitted. And then they require it to be done by the end of the month. And then I think what I understand is at the end of the month, for those who have not, and I guess this happens, for those who have still not filed, and a notice is sent to the county attorney's office listing those who have not, and I think the county attorney's office follows up directly with them. That's my understanding.
Okay.
So there may be a little bit more time. Yeah.
I will look for your guidance.
Okay.
You know, my decision is made, but I do not, if it's helpful that I continue on for another brief time period to allow for a smooth transition, I'm willing to do that.
Don, and again, I have no role here, so forgive me, but could I suggest that if you announce the effective date or until legally permissible, give it flexibility.
Yeah, I can do that. That's fine.
That is the cutoff date, so
Okay.
I do believe that you should use the end of the month.
Okay, I will do that. And if,
Don't ask for that. Let somebody come back and tell you that there's an extension and then you do it.
Okay.
In the meantime, then you could, right now.
He can have things in
somebody
place.
is interim.
Yeah.
The understanding it's interim and, but that's the way.
Yes.
long-term.
Okay, I'm gonna make a motion.
Just warning you.
Yes.
When you get in there.
Yeah, now, okay, so, Don, I probably should have a conversation because I'm also chair of the board of, the HVADC.
Sure.
And so I guess that's a direct conflict of interest, but as long as it's declared, simply stand out of it,
Yes.
but I don't understand how that would have.
Conflict of interest. I don't see anything that, that they, where you and in either position are doing anything that conflicts with the purposes of the other agency.
Generally, same line.
There may be some interrelationship between the two, and on those particular matters, you should just recuse yourself on both if there's a contract between the two of you.
Yes.
That's all. But I don't see that they're inconsistent positions. I do believe that there can become some instances where contractually they have, they're both in the same business,
We are unpacking a lot here today. Forgive me, but Tidra, I think in looking at 2026, the budget proposal where the county contracts with the LDC for a certain amount of money, and this organization has then funded tourism, HVADC, as well as the arts, perhaps having having the legislature consider direct funding to those organizations and then directly fund LDC for the economic development, business retention expansion program. So that may not be an issue at all.
And there's been some discussion, so I'm certainly happy to champion that in the legislature to get that done so that there's less of a conflict.
Could I ask?
Go ahead.
I'll ask one other thing. I know we don't have counsel here from the county or the legislature, but would it be something that, could we consider, the legislature consider a resolution for the coming month that would make an amendment or an accommodation for those boards that need to transition because of the financial disclosure and need that continuity?
So I think that could be difficult because, as I said, this board was voted on in 2024. They've had a year's notice. I'm not trying to be harsh.
No, totally respect that.
County attorney's been in here and discussed the financial disclosure.
Yeah.
So the negotiations that were happening, or the ask that happened from Sarah Lee and Tim and Mark, were effective 2026, not 2025. And I think we've delayed this and we've really fought this off since 2019. And I unfortunately, I think it's
So in the
not gonna be, there's no mechanism for us.
But just to allow certain individuals a month or two.
But in the interest of time, and in case that doesn't happen, I think I'm going to make a motion for the board to consider, which is to nominate Mark Doyle as interim director effective the date of my resignation. And that will allow people to prepare and get Mark's signature on things so that it's seamless. That's the motion that I would like to make.
Interim chair.
Interim chair, yes. What did I say?
Director? I'll second that.
Yes. Okay. Jasmine, will you please take a roll call vote?
Mark Doyle?
Approved.
Approved. Deidre Houston?
Approved.
Tom McCall?
Yeah, you can.
Approved.
You don't have to
Tim
recuse
Dean.
your own.
Approved.
Mr. Chairman, could you do the same with the treasurer for an interim period as well?
Is somebody willing to
I mean, Jamie, even if you are considering the disclosure, at least give a 30-day or
Yes,
60-day period.
I'm willing.
Okay, so
Secretary treasurer might be easier so that you cover them both.
Jamie, would you
Okay.
be willing to do that on a temporary?
Yes.
Temporary basis, okay. Do we need to use the term interim for that, or?
Interim.
Okay. I'll make the motion that the board appoint Jamie Picone as the interim secretary treasurer, effective the date of Kathy Bauer's resignation.
I will second that.
Okay, Jasmine?
Mark Doyle?
Approved.
Kathy Bauer?
Approved.
Amy Bondieri?
Approved.
Deidre Houston? Approved. Tom McCount?
Approved.
James McCollum?
Approved.
Tim Dees?
Approved. Okay, is there any other matter that needs to come before us? Well, I'd like to thank everybody for your participation in this. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And Kathy, thank you for your service.
You're welcome.
And I wish everybody, continued success with what this board looks to accomplish. And thank you.
Thank you for your service.
You still have another meeting,
I do?
June.
I thought it was the end of this month that it had to be, the form had to be in.
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah.
effective date now? Okay, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Okay.
Thanks for your addition, Ron.
We do have the issue of special meeting
Yes, understood.
and yes, all of that.
June.
June for CIA matter. I just learned that a public hearing for the CIA matter is likely going to be June.
June when?
June
Great.
3rd.
Okay.
Oh, no.
So it's likely it would be a Wednesday meeting, Thursday or Friday.
That week?
That week. And you're not, I'm able to do it, but we do need a quorum.
Okay, so just very quickly, I know people have to go, but just to get a sense of things, for those that will be continuing on the board, would you be available on June 4th, 5th, or 6th?
No.
Right?
Yes, that's correct.
No, one person?
I'm away that week.
It's okay. Anybody else? If it was June 4th,
Question, could that be our regular monthly meeting, or is there two meetings that month?
it could be.
Make that the monthly.
If we can make it the monthly meeting, I can be available the 4th or the 5th.
Okay. Anybody else?
Tom?
I'm available.
Okay.
I'm also available.
I'm
Mark?
available.
Okay.
Okay, so you have a quorum.
Are we in the LDC meeting or the IDA meeting right now?
IDA.
In the IDA meeting.
Because you have to do this as well for the LDC, right?
I was wondering that.
We would have to have, yes, the monthly meeting of both.
Well, you have to also.
No,
The resignation as well as the.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, well, I will do it in writing, so it'll,
Okay.
okay.
The motions, no?
A motion for secretary and treasurer?
In the LDC, in the interim head.
What we can do is everything that happened here for the LDC, it's going to be an LDC meeting. So everything you just did for the IDA, the LDC meeting will be the one for the special meeting and have that one first.
Okay.
And then go through appointing the interims, et cetera.
At that meeting.
Because that small gap with the LDC between the 28th and the 4th.
Got it.
Okay, that's all we have to worry about.
Okay.
So, we'll fill the position.
In the meanwhile, you can
Doesn't
have the
change the
paperwork done.
signatory paperwork.
No, there won't be anything hopefully.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, so it sounds to me like I heard that Wednesday could work. Okay, so we'll let,
Jamie won't be here, we can vote him in for all kinds of.
okay,
It's the 4th.
okay, so I would like to adjourn the Dutchess County IDA meeting at this time. Thank you.
Thank you.